Hello and welcome to another edition of Brazos Valley Voices. I'm Tom Turbyville, and today we're going to talk about Jack Currie, U.S. Army Air Corps, World War II, Texas A&M class of 1964. This interview happened July the 24th, 2008. Jack Currie is an Aggie, but before he ever entered Texas A&M, there was a war to fight in World War II's European theater. And that's where he and his B-17 crew flew some 50 combat missions in 1944 and 1945. It was a time in our history that included D-Day, the Battle of the Bulge, and eventually victory in Europe. He has some interesting stories to tell, but none more compelling than his mission May 12, 1944, when his flying fortress was shot up so badly it really had no business staying aloft. But it did. And thus Jack Currie was able to tell that story and many more. Jack Currie was born in 1921, and we lost Jack Currie September the 28th, 2019. Here's my visit with Jack Currie in his home.
You got any medical appointments on?
Right. Well, we'll just plan on that. Where are you going?
We're going to Aspen.
Oh, are you?
Colorado.
That's not just for a vacation?
Well, Ron and Ruth Ann have got a condo.
Right.
And they're going up Friday.
I see.
And going to be there a couple of days, and then we're going to join them for 10 days.
Right.
And then we'll be coming back.
Good. Well, tell me about yourself. You went to Texas A&M, obviously, right?
Right.
And
I'm a graduate.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Lott, Texas. You know where Lott is?
Yeah, sure.
That was my hometown, and
right.
I graduated from high school there.
Uh-huh.
And like so many other farm boys, I sat out on the farm and watched the airplanes go by, so I said, one of these days I'm going to fly one of those. And I did.
Right.
But anyway, that's a long story.
So but you came to Texas A&M. Did you always want to come to A&M?
Yeah, but I wasn't able to when I graduated from high school because financial situation.
Right.
And so I joined the Air Force, or Air Corps, I guess it was, at Randolph in 1940.
Mm-hmm.
And they sent me to Chanute Air Force Base up in Illinois for mechanic school. And I was supposed to come back to Randolph, but they kept me up there as an instructor.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed up there for 2 years, I guess, as an instructor. And then when they broke up the school at Chanute, they divided it in 3 ways. A third of it went to a Shepherd Air Force Base at Wichita Falls, and a third of it went to Biloxi, Mississippi, and a third of it stayed at Chanute.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave us a choice,
Mm-hmm.
where did we want to go? So I said, well, I'm being an old Texan, I'm going back to Shepherd Field.
Right.
Well, I spent, I guess, about nearly 3 years at Shepherd, and things got so bad in the school that seemed like there must be a better place.
Mm-hmm.
So I put in for aviation cadet and was accepted on Halloween Day.
I see.
And well, I went from there to Lackland, San Antonio,
Mm-hmm.
and from San Antonio to what's the name of the little town? Anyway, I took basic training at I can't even think where I went now, but anyway,
Mm-hmm.
They had divided it up, where you get 9 weeks of pre-flight, 9 weeks of basic, 9 weeks in advanced, and then 9 weeks, and the final 9 weeks, you got to go to multi-engine or single engine.
Right.
So I went from there. I went from primary to basic training at Goodfellow Air Force Base.
Right.
And then from there I went to Lubbock.
To Reese?
Which was, that time was Lubbock Army Air Field.
Lubbock Army Air Force Field, right, sure.
And graduated in November, I guess it was. And then they sent us to either multi-engine or single engine, and I chose multi-engine, so I went to Rattlesnake Bomber Base.
Where was that?
It was down between well, it's between San Antonio and
The Rodfels?
no, it's further south.
Oh, okay.
Anyhow, we got a crew together, you know, down there, and we flew a few hours, but not very much, as a crew, and they sent us to advanced crew training, I guess you'd call it, at Alexandria, Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, we got orders to go to England.
Now, what were you flying?
We were flying B-17.
B-17, okay. And you were piloting?
I went as a co-pilot,
right,
to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I finally got to be a pilot, but
right,
but that was after we flew combat some.
I see. So what year are we now? When did you go to England?
In 1945, I guess it was.
Okay.
Anyway, I was assigned to the
Is that your unit?
I was assigned to 8th Air Force 499th Squadron.
Uh-huh.
And the 499th was the night flying squadron.
I see.
We had 3 regular squadrons and a night flying squadron on the base at Chelveston. And I spent the first half of my tour at Chelveston, and then they broke us up again, and we went to Cheddington, which is right outside of London.
Mm-hmm.
This was so we could be close to Eisenhower's headquarters.
I see.
And we flew all over the occupied countries, from the Pyrenees Mountains to North Circle. And
what were the nature of your missions?
well, we dropped leaflets. You might get an idea better of what we did by looking at that book right there.
Right here?
The other one.
This one? Okay. Oh, I see that. Yeah, I remember your this that Bill Yunkin did.
Anyhow, leafing through there, it shows you a lot of the leaflets that we dropped. And I say I used to have a lot of that stuff, but when I moved, I just got rid of everything.
I see. So this was a lot of what you did.
Yes.
You flew the Flying Fortress?
I flew the Flying Fortress the whole time. Anyhow, a good friend of mine wrote that.
Uh-huh.
And got all the information together, and he sent me a copy of it.
Wow.
He's an Englishman.
Are you? I see this one picture. Are you in the book elsewhere?
No, not really. That was our crew. Right here.
Right.
And that's me right there.
Right here.
Yeah.
Miss Mickey Finn.
Well, that was one of the ships we flew.
One of the ships, yeah.
And this is the one we got shot up in.
Oh, is that right? So you flew in that one?
Yeah. We flew it the last mission. It was a shot up they just pushed off in the ocean, I guess.
So is this the description right here on May 12, 1944? Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah.
50 officers and men flying in 5 aircraft took off on a leaflet mission to Denmark. B-17 42-31032 JJB, flown by Lieutenant Michael. Yeah. That was your pilot?
That was our pilot.
Was attacked by a Junkers Ju-88, which killed its 2 waist gunners, Sergeants George Barber and Robert Walker. Both Sergeant Lewis Hayton, the radio operator, and Sergeants Nicholas Mastriani, the tail gunner, were badly wounded. Tail Sergeant Dan Brennan, the ball turret gunner, also received serious injuries as a result of the attack, but succeeded in beating off the Ju-88 before shooting it down. On return to the UK, the B-17 landed at RAF Riston, where the dead and injured were taken off the aircraft and the flak damage inspected. Note number 2 engine has been feathered.
Well, we were lucky to even get back, I'll tell you.
I'll bet you were.
They made a mess of our airplane. Like I say, they just pushed it off in the ocean when we got back, because they said there wasn't anything worth salvaging.
What do you specifically remember about this mission? You were the co-pilot, right? You were in the
right.
You were in the right seat.
Right. What do I remember?
Yes, sir.
I remember that hail of bullets as it
right.
hit the airplane. It sounded just like hail on a tin roof. And
from both the attack and the flak? Or what? This was an attack?
This was an attack by Ju-88, or
right.
two Ju-88s.
Right.
And the first one really did us in, and the second one, when he started shooting, well, our gunners were on him, and he blew up. And why the first guy didn't come back, I don't know, but he didn't. And I say we were about 24,000 feet when this happened, I guess.
Right.
Of course, they shot out our oxygen, they shot out all our radios, and most of our navigation equipment. And so we had to come down because we didn't have any oxygen.
Right.
And they shot out number 2 engine, and we started down in a pretty steep dive to get down to where we could breathe, and number 4 engine went out. But we managed to get both of them feathered, and so we flew for, seemed like a long time, and it was, I guess. This happened just off the coast of Denmark, as we went into the North Sea. And the flux gate compass that we use for normal navigation was shot out. And the only compass we had is a little liquid compass like they use in automobiles. And I don't know when it had ever been swung, or whether it was in, but it wasn't very accurate.
Right.
But I figured if I put it on 270, we're bound to hit England somewhere. But we wouldn't have if we hadn't found out where we were. We tootled along, seemed like forever, just right at stall speed, with 2 engines gone, and we threw out everything that would lighten the airplane. That is after we got down to a lower altitude, and then I say the Lieutenant Michaels went back in the back, and he was trying to help the people that were wounded, and so forth. So he says, "You got it," and he turned it over to me, and like I say, I just put it in a steep dive, and we went down to about 12,000 feet, and then started to level out. And believe it or not, the vacuum system that ran the automatic the horizon, so to speak, was shot out too, and I couldn't understand how we kept losing altitude, and according to the instruments, we were level. And the first thing you know, I could look at the side of the side of the airplane, and there wasn't anything out there but water. So I got to checking.
What time of day was this?
Oh, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning, I guess.
Okay, so it's pitch black.
Oh, it's pitch black.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I finally realized that the vacuum had been shot out, vacuum pump had been shot out, so B-17 has two, one on either side, so I switched to the one that was still good, and our artificial horizon then came back to where it should be, you know, and so I was able to level out about 12,000 feet, or maybe a little less, and right at stall speed almost, and we kept flying at 270 degrees, which should have taken us to England, I thought. But we flew and flew and flew and kept losing altitude, and finally got down to about 3,500 feet before we began to hold altitude. And we had flown long enough, I figured, that we should have been over England. So I called the navigator. I says, "Have you got anything down there that works?" And he said, "I'll go see." So he came back in a few minutes. He said, "Well, the G-box may be working." And that was what we used for drop and everything else as far as newspapers and so forth. In fact, it was like accurate to about 50 yards, I guess, in any direction.
Yeah.
He says, "You know, if that G-box is working," says, "you need to make a 90-degree turn to the right." So I did, and you know, we hadn't more than turned to the right till we were picked up by the lights, you know. And they use these lights to direct you to
a field.
If you had no communication, and we had none. But the CW set was still working, and the radio man sat back there and pounded out SOS until we were back over England. That's the only reason I know where we went. But we were going right down the middle of the English Channel, and if we hadn't turned, we'd gone right out of the Atlantic.
Right.
But we turned, and I say almost immediately we were picked up by these lights, and they kept waving them which way they wanted us to go. And of course, they didn't know how bad we were shot up or anything. And we ended up way up in Scotland before they gave us clearance to land. And we knew that it was going to make a heck of a noise or something when it landed, because they got the ball turret man out, but left his guns pointing straight down. And they landed us on a fighter field, which is this PSP planking, you know. And when we finally hit the ground, you never heard such a racket.
Oh, man.
And we almost immediately came to a stop because, like I say, the gun barrels hit the runway, and we found out later that they had shot the tail wheel off, so we were dragging the tail end of the airplane also.
Goodness.
But we managed to make it all right, and
Where were you in Scotland? Do you know where?
well, it was on the east coast, east side of it,
I see.
but I couldn't tell you the name of the
Oh,
field.
the name of the field. Oh.
But anyway, it's up around what they call the Wash,
Uh-huh.
and we were so happy to get on the ground
Oh, I imagine.
after all this confusion that we'd been through. That they sent us on to the barracks to spend the rest of the night, and they took the two men that were, well, one of my gunners lived until he almost got back to England.
Mm-hmm.
The other one was killed almost immediately. And they took them, of course, to the hospital or wherever they took them in an ambulance, and they sent us to quarters so we could get some rest.
Right.
And so the next morning we went out just to see how bad the airplane was shot up, and I don't see how the airplane flew.
Mm-hmm.
It had big holes through the propeller, and
Right.
A lot of the cooling fins on the cylinders were shot off, I guess you'd say. But anyway, we had two good engines that were still running, and we managed to make it back. So don't let anybody tell you you're going to fly on two engines.
You prove it. You proved it can. How many combat missions did you fly in England?
I flew 50.
50. And was this the closest you came to it being your last? I guess this one was your most memorable as far as.
Yeah, this was about halfway through.
Right.
In fact, it was, I guess, the last mission before we moved to Cheddington.
Uh-huh.
And the rest of the missions were, well, they weren't milk runs or anything like that, but I'd say the rest of them were
Not quite as exciting as
not
that.
quite as exciting. But we had two missions before that turned out to be very exciting. One was down to the submarine pens
Mm-hmm.
of that they had set up in France, and we went down there one night. We were going to test out some new bombs that for a while we dropped these things loose, and of course they'd scattered all over the countryside.
Mm-hmm.
So they figured out, well, you put these in a bomb and then put an aneroid fuse on it,
Right.
and have it open about maybe 3,500 feet or something like that to get pretty good coverage.
Mm-hmm.
So we took the squadron navigator and went down to Saint Nazaire to make a first drop on these bombs. And of course he was interested in making sure they all opened and so forth, and so he said, okay, we'll drop these things, and said, everybody keep an eye out and see them burst, you know. He said, you ought to be able to see this black powder burst. So we were sitting there like sitting duck, you know, watching for these things, and we started counting, you know, and we had 10 of them. But when you got to 11, 12, 13, we realized it wasn't the bombs we were seeing, it was VACAC.
Uh-huh.
And of course we went into all kinds of maneuvers trying to get out of the flak. And we managed to kind of get out of the flak around Saint Nazaire, and we were going back then across France to England, and I guess they sent up a fighter plane, and that fighter plane sat right behind us, not close enough that we could shoot at it, or it could shoot at us, but he sat back there and radioed our airspeed, height, speed, and everything. And so we fought flak all the way back across France, everywhere they had an emplacement. Well, we were dodging flak.
Mm-hmm.
But we made it back all right. And then I say, we had another very exciting mission where we dropped our load and started back to England, and we lost an engine. And this engine sat back there and we couldn't feather it, so it sat there and just rotated, until it burned all the oil out of it, and then it looked like a pinwheel,
Mm-hmm.
sparks. And we got back to England, and they said, well, you can land at this little fighter strip just right over the banks of Dover. And so we were fighting the controls all the way back because the airplane was shaking. You couldn't read the instruments. And so we finally got lined up to land in this little field. We come right over the banks of Dover there, and just as we got ready to land, they said, "Pull it up, go around." I said, "We got a fighter plane that ground loop running on the runway." So we pulled it up, and like you say, I think we just held it up by brute force. And we made the 270-degree turn and came back in and landed okay. But it was a little grass field, and we ended up rolling right up to the fence around the base. But I say this was a pretty exciting little base. I guess it caught a lot of the people that came in, that were in bad trouble. And the next morning when we went down to the field again, there was a B-25 sitting right next to our B-17, and it had one hole right in the nose, and they said it hit the navigator right square in the head, and killed him. And then that afternoon we had another airplane come in there that was on one engine. It was the B-26, and they gave him clearance to land, and he started to make a left turn to the final approach, and I guess he decided to jettison the canopy so they could get out in a hurry. And they jettisoned the canopy, and it went right into the good engine.
Oh my goodness!
So they landed across the field, and they said the guns were hot and everything else. So, but they made a successful landing, and all three of the guys, there's just three people in the B-26, I guess it was. They all got out all right, but boss, it tore up that airplane, but good, when they landed short like that.
Right.
But I say that was an exciting little airfield right down on the coast. But I say we had all kind of things happen to us. We got brand new B-17s in. We had lost a couple.
Yeah.
So we got two new ones in, and the ops officer and his buddy decided they'd go out and fly one of them. And
right.
They got off the ground somehow or another, and then the engines quit on them.
Yeah.
And they landed right off the end of the runway, and all the people on the airplane got off, but it burned right there at the end of the runway.
Yeah.
So I said, we had all kinds of exciting things go on over there.
I guess weather was really...
The weather was terrible. I say, we took off 2 different missions, and they told us there was no possibility you're landing back in England, that you can come back and try, but there's not much possibility of your landing. And so we came back, I guess the first time, and they sent us back, way back up in Scotland, and we were able to land.
Yeah.
And the second time we were sent down to a naval base in.
You need to get that?
No.
Okay, they'll get. Okay.
Second time we landed at Land's End, which is right down on the English Channel.
Right.
And we were able to land down there, but that's pretty spooky to take off, and they say there's no place to land when you get back.
Right. Well, you were able to find them.
But we were able to land both times.
Right.
But I say, when we were told that we probably would not be able to land in England at all, it pretty almost shakes you up.
I guess. Talk about, I'm reading here in this about your 50th mission. You tried to take a shortcut?
Yeah, we did.
And that almost turned out not too good?
We got hit by friendly flak.
I see.
Either English or American, I don't know which.
Right.
And I say that tail gunner brought a little piece of flak back about 6 or 8 inches long. He said it came up right between his legs and hit his gun barrels.
Right.
But anyway, we had some excitement.
Right. Now I read where after the Battle of the Bulge, you dropped some more leaflets on the Germans after the Battle of the Bulge during the surrender.
Yeah, we dropped a lot of leaflets, surrender leaflets. And we got good reports back that the Germans used a lot of them.
Right.
And we went out on D-Day and or pre-D-Day, I should say.
Right.
And dropped leaflets that told the French, to get off the coast.
Right.
And I had never seen so many boats in my life going across that English Channel. I think you could have walked across.
My goodness. So your 50th mission, I guess, was after the Battle of the Bulge, so it was in 1945.
Yeah.
When did you come home?
Well, I finished my missions in August, I guess it was.
Of 45.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then they had a bunch of new crews come in to take over, and they kept me there to fly the new crews, to orient them on the navigation and so forth. So I spent about 6 weeks, I guess, after I finished my missions.
Right.
In England. And I got back in I guess October. I got back in.
45. So the war was over now. Is that right?
It was over in England.
Over in England.
In Europe.
Right. Did you think that you were going to be assigned to go to Japan then, or?
Well, I came back and they sent me to Laredo. And we were flying gunnery missions down there. And most of the gunners, of course, had flown in England. And some of these guys were pretty skittish about what they wanted to do or what happened, and we took off one morning to go on a gunnery mission, and I had one guy that he said he was ready to jump out of the airplane. We had what happened. One of the engineer or something got overbalanced or something, and he banged into the panel that had all the electrical wires and so forth in it, and it set the soundproofing on fire, and it got pretty smoky in there. Mm-hmm. And he was all ready to jump out. He I guess jumped out in England somewhere. But anyway, I say we had a lot of excitement.
Yeah. So you came back to the States. You were assigned to Laredo Air Force Base?
Yes. And I stayed down there for about 6 months, I guess, and I had enough points to get out. Mm-hmm. So they were sending a lot of us to B-29s, and I was just about ready to getting on orders to go to B-29s, and I said, well, I've had enough of this combat. I'm not going to get, if I don't have to. And they said, well, you've got enough points to get out, you can get out. So I got out, and I stayed out almost a year, and I worked for the VA and several outfits there in Waco, Texas, and I guess, well, I was working for the Ford tractor people, and they got to the point where the Ford manufacturing people were not able to produce enough equipment to keep the agencies supplied. So I volunteered to go back into the Air Force, and I went back in and I was assigned to a reserve outfit in well, I guess it was in Grand Prairie. Anyway, it was a joint Air Force and Navy outfit, and I hadn't been there but just a very short time till I got orders to go overseas again.
I see.
And I went to Guam. In fact, I was supposed to go to Okinawa, but they had a typhoon on Guam and had wrecked a lot of the hangars and storage buildings, and I guess it pretty well mixed up all the supplies and so forth. And since I'd been in the aircraft repair business, they pulled me off on Guam, and I spent about a year and a half on Guam, most of the time re-identifying equipment that had been either water soaked or something by the typhoon.
I see.
And
wow.
And I came back to Fort Worth at Carswell Air Force Base, and we were given the first 3 B-36s that came off the line, and told us to make cold weather tests on them, and where they sent us was Rapid City, South Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't have thought of a colder place. Anyway, they had built a huge hangar at Rapid City, which is still there, I guess. Supposedly they could put B-36, two B-36s in there.
Mm-hmm.
But we never did get two in there. We usually had other airplanes that needed to get in there, and so we put one B-36 and we put a C-47 and a small airplane or something, unreached wing and so forth. But anyway, we had a hangar chief that was a real character. They had put hot water pipes, in all the floor and everything, to keep it warm in the wintertime.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd close the door at night, and when we get there in the morning, well, it's pretty warm in the huge big hangar.
Mm-hmm.
First thing you do is open the doors and move out the airplane. Anyway, we spent some exciting weather time in South Dakota.
I'll bet.
And like I say, those three airplanes, I don't think flew probably 50 hours the whole time we were up there, because there was something wrong with them all the time.
I see.
And we fought the weather, like I say, most of the time.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah.
To make a long story short, well, my discharge came up, and I got out again.
Mm-hmm.
And drove down to Carsville Air Force Base in Fort Worth and re-upped. And they put me in charge of the AT-6s. I had about 6 of them to look after, and so I thought this was a good deal,
Uh-huh. These were trainers?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And like I say, I lived in Lott. I had a home there, so I moved back to Lott.
Yeah.
And I drove back and forth to the base every day. It was like a civilian job almost. But then
What year was this now?
that was when Castro acted up,
Okay.
and they recalled me to.
Late 50s? Are we talking about 50?
Yeah,
When were you in South Dakota? Do you remember the
49, I guess, up there.
Uh-huh.
Anyhow, I came back to Waco
Mm-hmm.
and then when Castro acted up, they recalled me to active duty, and I took a refresher course, and they sent me down to San Marcos.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent almost 3 years down there in the back seat of a trainer, teaching Army personnel how to fly.
Mm-hmm.
Basic training, real basic stuff. In fact, we started out with Aranca Chiefs, and then we finally ended up with PT-13s, which is which is the bird dog, I guess the Army called them.
Mm-hmm.
Is it? They used them in Vietnam all the time as spotters and so forth.
Right.
And but I say we went through Arancas, and then we went through 2 or 3 different kinds of airplanes before we ended up with the Bird Dog.
Mm-hmm.
And then they decided that my engineering officer decided I needed to be a helicopter pilot. So
Really?
So I went through helicopter school then, and I had no more than graduated from helicopter school till they decided they was going to close the base. So they sent me from San Marcos to Austin, and while I was in Austin, well, I got called back to Chanute as a commander anyway of one of these groups that went around and taught new personnel, I guess you'd say, or
orientation type things. Yeah.
On the KC-135 and B-29 B what?
This was in Illinois.
This was.
I know it's been a long time. Chanute is in Illinois, is that right?
Yeah. Then, like I say, Chanute was my headquarters, but I said we had this mobile training detachment.
I see.
And we checked everybody out that's supposed to have been checked out at Bergstrom, and so they sent me then to Maxwell, I guess it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I found out they didn't need me over there, so they sent me back to Chanute, to headquarters.
Right.
And then I finished my tour of duty as in the instrument department of the mechanic school at Chanute. And I had a real good first sergeant of the outfit that I was in, and he took care of most all the business, and so I ended up flying the base commander around.
Mm.
He had a C-47 that was all I guess you'd say prettied up on the inside,
Mm-hmm.
and he used to scare the dickens out of me on flying that airplane. I mean, I flew as instructor pilot with him.
Right.
He'd take off and he'd put that airplane and climb, and all the red lines would come, and I'd, sir, I think you're doing this a little bit too fast. But anyway, we survived, and I stayed there until I retired.
In 62?
I retired in 62.
And then you went back to Texas A&M. Is that right?
I came back to Texas A&M and got 2 degrees.
Uh-huh. A degree in education, is that right?
Yeah.
Industrial education.
Industrial education. And then...
What'd you do with that? So you finished it, you got your degree in, looks like what, in 64 and then in 69?
Well,
Master's in 69.
I went, I taught school at Bryan for a couple of years.
Uh-huh.
And...
While you were going to school?
No.
Or after you got out?
After I got out.
I see.
After I got the first degree, let's put it that way.
Right. What'd you teach?
I taught mostly, I guess you'd say, manual arts.
Mm-hmm.
Woodworking, metalworking.
I see.
Motor repair. And,
yeah.
this kind of stuff.
Right.
But anyway, I had a good friend that was in personnel out at A&M, and he called me up one day and he says, "Hey, would you be interested in a job out here?" And I says, "What kind of a job?" And he said, "Well, Earl Rudder's just established a new position as a surplus procurement officer." And he said, "Would you like to come and investigate it?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I sure would." And so I was hired as a surplus procurement officer out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for about almost 18 years.
I see.
All through the Vietnam area and so forth.
Right.
And most of the early NASA flights.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I picked up several $1 million worth of surplus equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Most of it's still good equipment, but surplus to the needs of NASA or to the Army.
Mm-hmm.
And brought it into A&M for use out here in the various departments.
Mm-hmm.
And I say I did that for about 17, 18 years and retired again.
I see.
And I've been retired since 1982.
82, so that's when you retired from A&M.
Yeah.
I see.
So I had a good life.
Yeah, you have. How old are you?
87.
87. Tell me about your family.
Well, I have 3 children,
Mm-hmm.
and my son Don is retired from the Air Force now, and he works for a computer outfit in Arlington.
Mm-hmm.
And Ruth Ann and Ron here in
Right.
Brian, and Brian, my youngest son, is mentally retarded.
Mm-hmm.
So he's here with us.
I see. That's Brian that I just met out there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And my wife had heart surgery.
Mm-hmm.
That's been 1952. Oh, no, 62.
Right.
And she really had never recovered from that surgery,
Mm-hmm.
but she ended up with Alzheimer's.
I see.
And she's out at Hudson Creek Alzheimer's Special Care Unit.
I see. How long have y'all been married?
65, 66 years.
Wow. So you married after you got back?
No, I married before I went.
Before you went, okay.
And my daughter, Ruth Ann, was born while I was in England.
I see.
So we've had a good life up until my wife went into Alzheimer's.
Got sick. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't say much for the situation right now.
Right.
She's
Oh, it's tough.
slowly going where she doesn't even know anything.
Oh, it's tough. That's tough. I'm so sorry. So how many grandkids do you have?
I've got, well, Don's got 2 children, and Ruth Ann's got 1,
Uh-huh.
and then Kim has got 2 great-grandkids,
I see.
and then one of their grandkids has got a son, so I got a great-great-grandchild.
I'll be darned. What's your wife's name? Your wife's name?
Ruth.
Ruth? Okay. Okay.
Anyway, I say I can't complain. No, we've had a good life. And unfortunately, what's happened right now is not good.
Right. Right. Right.
But I've been invited to, Brian and I have been invited to stay with Ron and Ruth Ann as long as we want to. I figure they're going to kick us out one of these days.
Oh, I'll bet not.
Anyway, we've been enjoying life as far as what they've offered us here.
The Flying Fortress. Those were, they look like big airplanes, but you get inside of them and there's not much room to maneuver, is there?
Not much.
They landed one out here, a year or so ago,
Yeah.
out here at Easterwood, and I got to crawl all through it. And I thought, boy, that must have been, especially with that flak going, you rattled around inside that thing, didn't you?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
No, I say when we got shot up, I got about 3 .30 caliber bullet holes in a bullet hits, I used to say, in the back of my seat.
Right.
But fortunately, that they were stopped by armor plate. But unfortunately, the 2 gunners, they had nothing really to
Right.
protect them. And I say one of them lived until we got back to England and died before we landed. The other one was killed immediately. And I say my navigator and my pilot went back to attend to the people that were wounded.
Right.
And they had a time getting the ball turret gunner out
Yeah.
because the electric motor or something that moved that ball turret didn't work, so they had to grind him out by hand.
Oh my goodness.
And I say he was hit 3 times, I guess. The tail gunner got hit twice, and the radio man got hit once.
Is this was this a reunion of something, or
Yeah,
that's gonna be?
they have one every year.
So it's coming up in Colorado Springs.
Right. I just got that the other day. I've never been to one of their reunions.
So what squadron were you?
I was for
422nd?
422nd.
Okay. 422nd Squadron
Right.
of the 305th Bombardment Group
Right.
of the 8th Air Force.
Of the 8th Air Force. And I say, well, when we transferred to Cheddington, we
Yeah.
were put in the 8th Composite Command.
8th Composite Command, I see.
And I say, we were right close to, they put us down into Cheddington, which is right near Eisenhower's headquarters.
Right.
And so we could get the most current information for our newspapers and so forth.
Did you ever come in contact with the general?
No, I never did.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is fascinating. Can I borrow these things and give them back to you?
Sure.
Because this will help me with my preparation for,
Yeah,
for the show. And I will take very good care
I
of
would
them.
sure like to get them back. Now,
Oh, you will. Oh, you. I will deliver them back to you.
I've had
And you. I promise you, I will take very, very good care of them. But this will help me in preparation. Do you have? I noticed this photograph is great. And you say you got rid of most everything. Do you have this photograph that that Bill Yunkin used? This mugshot. Do you have that anywhere around? This one.
I tried to locate it, but I couldn't find it. I don't
This
know
one here.
whether Ruth Ann got it or not. She may have it.
Okay. Well, I might call Ruth Ann, or you might, if you look for it or something like that, if she has it, I might. what I want to do is I'm going to scan some of these things so they'll be ready for the show when we do it. Why don't we plan on that Thursday the 24th, which would be 2 weeks from this Thursday, because you say you're going to get back on that Tuesday, the 22nd. So that'll give you a couple of days to rest from your trip. And if you're doing all right, what I'll do is I'll plan to give you a call on the 23rd, on Wednesday. And I guess you know your way around A&M. You know where KAMU is, don't you? Where the TV station is there, right there on Houston Street, right near the former students building, or they're redoing the former students building now. But that's where it is, and we usually tape at 2:30 in the afternoon. And can you get there yourself? And you drive and all that? Okay, that's good. But I'll tell you what, don't worry about this until I'll give you a call on that Wednesday after you get back. Okay. The 23rd. And confirm that you're still okay to do it on the 24th. And what we do is, you've seen the show. Just recently, I don't know if you've seen the show in the last couple of weeks, but we've changed up the set just a little bit. The last couple of shows that I've done. Most of the shows that I've done for the last 3 years, you're sitting in a chair and I'm sitting in a chair about this far away. Well, we've changed it up to where we're both sitting at a desk, and I'm a little bit closer to you than the previous shows that I've done, and that way I don't have to yell at you. Okay. And we can just have a conversation. I like the set a whole lot better. But it's a 30-minute show, and I'll just sort of lead the conversation. And we'll do just essentially what we're doing right now. We won't be able to take quite as much time, and we'll move a little bit quicker from one subject to another. Obviously, I want to spend a lot of time on your memorable mission, obviously, and some of your other missions, and your work after you got out, and your work at Texas A&M as we have time. But I think it'll be a great show. I really do. And I appreciate your service.
I hope so.
Oh, I think it will be. It's very easy to do. And the show will actually air probably about 3 or 4 weeks after we tape it. So it probably won't air till August sometime. Okay. Sometime in August when it'll actually be on the air. But I'll be sure to give you and Ron and Ruth a DVD of the show and all of that.
Appreciate
that.
So
we'll do that. But thank you for your service.
Well,
mainly, I always be sure and thank everybody for their service, because veterans mean a whole lot to me.
Mayor is walking the fence. He's getting ready to drop a baby, and I got $70,500 worth of stud fees in her. He's like, I ain't going home till that baby's on the ground.
Now you're a horseman?
Huh?
You ride?
I did.
Uh-huh. Is this your saddle?
That was my granddad's saddle, and my dad's, and then mine.
Yeah.
And I keep that over there so that if I get to feeling a little bit self-satisfied, I can look at that sucker and tell where I came from.
Yes, sir. Wow. That's amazing. That's a saddle. That's amazing.
That was made in 1872.
Goodness gracious.
Got the old stockman's whip and my anchor spurs, and
well, I want to, if I may, you got these pictures. You got any other pictures from your service?
no.
Okay. Well, this is fine. Can I take that picture and give it back to you on Wednesday?
As long as I get back.
I'm going to give them back to you on Wednesday. I just want to scan them.
Be careful of my pipe there, boy. That's the same pipe that was taken 55 years ago.
Really?
That's the same pipe I had in my mouth when I took the picture. Dog, get away from there with your tail. Come on.
I'll be darned. Oh, you were telling me about the dog.
Right. Anyway, they went down there, and he had no hair because he had no muscle, no nothing left. Come here. And he weighed about 20 some odd pounds. They brought him back up, took the bird shot out of him, and gave him some IV and some food. And he was so far down, nobody looked at him. And well, Well, the family's been involved with the shelter for years.
Right.
And I'd get down there and scratch some ears because my old dog that I had for 20 years had died on me about a year before.
Uh-huh.
And I walked in there one day and he was just flopped out half dead on the floor in one of those pens. And boy, poor devil, what happened, they told me. And the poor devil walked on around, came back, had to buy the damn thing, and he struggled up on his elbows, looked up and went wimp.
That was it.
Tilt.
That was it. You had a dog.
The damn dog had heartworms, mange, ear mites, bacterial infection. Anything you could think of was wrong with it. It cost me a damn fortune. Vet bills. I mean, and anyway, here he is, and I got him.
And it's about as healthy a looking dog as I've ever seen.
Oh, he's got muscles, we're on muscles. I run him about a mile every morning and every afternoon.
Right.
No, he's the biggest muscles runs from ear to ear. He's everybody's friend.
Oh,
I think he must have been involved with a female though, because I got all these damn sorority gals jogging up, and he looks there. Every once in a while he'll lose it and chase me, run one down, and I get a little bit of a snicker because I'll go out and say, "You can't keep it." And snicker, 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 snicker. Gee, Papa, can I have one of these? No, you can't.
Oh.
He really is. He's a great companion.
Oh,
Nominally very well behaved.
Right. He likes people who just very well.
Oh yeah. He's except for that SOB that poked that bird shot in me. He was too young to be somebody was trying to train at him. And he's a great retriever, but he's a lousy giver-upper.
Yeah.
He says, if I run that damn thing down, it's fine. Yes, you're a good guy. You're a good enough guy.
And his name is
Trooper.
Trooper, you're a good dog.
He's a good guy. Everybody.
Well, we're going to do this. We're going to do this show on Wednesday, and we tape it at 1:30, and we're over at KAMU. Do you know where that is? KAMU Radio. It's over on campus.
Wednesday is the
Wednesday at 1:30.
15th.
Yes, sir. If you could be there around 1:15, that would be great. And we just, you've seen the show on.
Now, KAMU's that separate building back behind they're pretty close to the.
If you go on George Bush to Houston Street, you go in there. That's where the
police operation is.
Yeah, well, that's where it used to be. I think they've moved now, but where the former students building is.
Yeah.
And where
on the left.
and where the foundation building is, that's Houston Street.
Yeah.
It goes into campus, right by the side of
It's
Kyle
up there on
Field.
the left.
Exactly. You
Okay.
go in. It's a one-story building,
Yeah.
and it's on the left.
Yeah.
Right when you go on the campus, and you can just turn left into the parking lot right after the building, and park in the back of the building, back behind the building is where there's parking spots there that you can park. And if you'll be there Wednesday about 1:15, and what we do is we just sit down in two chairs and we just talk, just kind of like we've talked right now. I'll just lead you through it. You've seen the show. You kind of know what we do. And we talk for about 27 and a half minutes, and I try to get as much in, and we'll show some photographs.
I've got about 6 or 7 hours of tape stuff we made for over the museum over there.
Is that right?
Well, see, having been in there first, the first 90 days of Korea was a very dicey situation.
Yes, sir.
And I was there and on top of it, and I had all of my original maps that I used, charting out where things were and what they're the only existing set of maps. And so with those, I wound up doing interviews on the early days of Korea.
Right.
From the air standpoint, as it worked with the ground units,
Right.
which were beat all to hell.
You bet. Yeah.
So Well, there's lots of that stuff. I've done it before,
Right.
and I prefer to be led.
Yeah, you'll be led. You'll be led. I'll lead you just from one to another, and yeah, it'll go good. And we go straight. We just, what you see on TV is pretty much the way we tape it. We don't stop. We go for 27 and a
I
half
get pretty
minutes.
intense about some of this stuff because I lost an awful lot of good friends.
Yes, sir.
In 2 wars.
Yes, sir.
And you tend to get that way.
Well, that's good. That's good. The emotion is the emotion, and the intensity is deserved. And most of the people I talk to are that way.
This is not to be discussed on it either, but
Yes, sir.
my best friend was the battalion chaplain. And he was 3 feet from me when he took one right between the eyes. And that'll tighten you up a little bit.
Was that in World War II?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll tighten you up a little bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for your service, and thank you for doing this. It's an honor to be able to.
No, that's
to do
another
this.
word you don't want in there. There's an honor bit. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be able to share.
Yes, sir.
Glad to be able to help.
Yes, sir.
And I think this greatest generation is a misnomer. It'd be the hungry generation. Anything was better than what we had.
Sure.
And what we
just
had
came out of the
and what
Depression.
we had was worth fighting for.
Right. Right.
That was all we had to do. We didn't have a choice.
Exactly.
And I think it every once in a while somebody tries to work up a new name tag. And you can't express a complete feeling in one word or one phrase.
Yes, sir.
I got fussed at over there when I was making tapes with them, because at the end of about every sentence for a little while I was going, well, it was just what you had to do. You didn't have a choice. It had to be done. You look around, there's nobody else to do it, so you do it.
Right.
There was nothing honorable about that.
Right. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying. Honor implies doing something above what had to be done, above what you know. It was just a way of life. Yeah.
Yeah. It has questions. Distinguished flying cross over there, a couple of those. Well, I got friends on the ground that are being shot at. They can't find out where the hell it's coming from. So you go down and put her on the ground a little bit and dig around, and they start shooting at you, and you find out where the hell they are, and then you shoot back at them. And you go home and patch up the holes. Well, there was only one way. It was either he got killed,
or you did.
No, it was either he got killed or the other guy got killed.
Right.
Because they're going to get him. Whether they got me or not, they're going to get him.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't move.
Right. Right.
And he's still alive today. And I saw him over in Birmingham about a year ago. With Alzheimer's. And believe it or not, that he remembered.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what? Edward M. Logan. Whatever.
I appreciate your service, and I understand what you mean by you did what had to be done.
Yeah.
It's
This business saying it's an honor to meet you, I think it's a little subservient. I don't like that. I don't like that.
well, I guess
All men are created equal, but they're only created equal.
Right. Right.
They don't necessarily remain that way.
Right. I guess when I say honor, I more mean.
I think I know what you mean.
Well, I think I more mean that I appreciate.
That's a better word.
I appreciate what you did. That you and all who fought in that war did.
How many more million?
Yeah.
See, that's the thing.
Right.
All this is coming about simply because of the fact that I've survived.
Uh-huh.
It's the poor devil that didn't come back is the ones you need the story on.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's
my squad leader, who put his helmet over a Japanese grenade and threw himself on top of the grenade and died, and I got in the middle of water. He's the one that you ought to be talking to.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You can't do it.
Yeah.
Sergeant James Cooley.
Right. And there's too many sons and daughters that don't know the story.
Oh boy, yeah. Cooley was orphan, was raised in the Catholic Church, Catholic orphanage in New York. And when he got old enough to join the Army, that was the only place he had to go, and he needed another home.
Mm-hmm.
So he joined the Army, his regular Army. He was at Pearl Harbor, the 25th. He was in the 25th Division at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went through that, went through Guadalcanal, Colomagar, Arundel, Bella, Luzon, and on Luzon he wound up getting the Medal of Honor for doing that. And when we straightened out his records to send him on back, they always had what they called soldiers' deposits. Had always been there for soldiers. They could take part of their pay and put it away to keep for when they got out, stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
Cooley ran the company poker game. And we sent $60,000 to the Catholic orphanage that he had in his soldiers' deposits. He was a career soldier.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's a guy. That's a story that needs to be told, and it can't be.
Right. Right.
Can't be.
One of the reasons that I got involved in telling these stories was because my mother's first husband, he wasn't my father, he was my brother's father, but my mother's first husband was a Navy pilot. He flew F-6F Hellcats. But he was killed in a training mission in Hawaii just before his unit embarked on the Princeton. I've just always been just interested in his story and who he was. And here was a young man who had a baby that he barely knew and another baby on the way. And one of his students accidentally clipped his rudder on a training mission. They were doing a strafing mission over Barking Sands in Hawaii, and he went in, and so it's sort of to it's sort of show my appreciation for him too. My family.
My best friend was killed off Corpus Christi, of all places. He was a Navy pilot.
At the air base.
And they were out working some tactical stuff before going to Malta. He was on orders to Malta.
Right.
And
one
of the people came in there and chewed up ants, chewed up the end of his wing. Mm-hmm. He went into the bay.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there were...
that was in 40. That was in 42. Was in, I guess, April or May of 42.
Right.
So,
right.
Who knows?
No guarantees.
Brazos Valley Voices is very proud of its relationship with the Brazos Valley Veterans Memorial. It's tucked away in College Station's Veterans Park and Athletic Complex at 3101 Harvey Road. It's a hidden gem for sure, a 12-acre site dedicated to veterans from our nation's major wars. The Brazos Valley Veterans Memorial includes life-size statues, a wall of honor, interpretive panels, and memorial sites. It was chartered in 2000 as a nonprofit corporation. The Brazos Valley Veterans Memorial is supported by generous community residents, organizations, and partners, including Brazos County and the municipalities of Bryan and College Station. The Brazos Valley Veterans Memorial's all-volunteer board of directors proudly contributes their time and resources to salute our veterans. Their mission is to proactively pay tribute to veterans through an educational venue where future generations can learn that freedom comes with a heavy price. Former President George H.W. Bush helped dedicate the Brazos Valley Veterans Memorial on November the 10th, 2002. Bush said at the time, "The Brazos Valley community can stand proud. The names that mark the memorial showcase the sons and daughters who gave dedicated service to our nation so that future generations can share the freedoms we enjoy. Their task was great, their sacrifice even greater, but their legacy stands firm, and their memories burn bright." Bush later said the Brazos Valley Veterans Memorial is a similar quality to those at the famed mall in Washington, D.C. Within the Lewis L. Adam Memorial Plaza sits the 250-ton red granite Wall of Honor, which serves as the memorial's focal point. The wall bears the etched names of more than 5,000 veterans representing all periods of U.S. history who are family and friends of Brazos Valley residents. Notable names include 24 presidents and former Texas A&M University students who received the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military award. The bronze sculpture mounted at the top of the wall depicts a GI carrying a fellow soldier to safety. The statue is the work of artist Robert Eccleston of Schuyler Falls, New York. Do you have a beloved veteran that you would like to add to the Wall of Honor? The veteran may be living, deceased, or active, and does not have to be a Brazos Valley resident. The cost is $150 per name, and the application deadline each year is August the 15th. New additions are recognized at the annual Veterans Day ceremony. Names received after August 15th will be recognized the following year. For more information on adding your loved ones or your name to the Brazos Valley Veterans Memorial Wall of Honor, contact the BVVM at 979-696-6247 or email them info@bvvm.org. Or you can go to their fantastic website. It's easy, bvvm.org. Hello, test 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4. Hello, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10. Hello and welcome to another edition of Brazos Valley Voices. I'm Tom Turbyville, and today we're going to talk about Jack Currie, U.S. Army Air Corps, World War II, Texas A&M class of 1964. This interview happened July the 24th, 2008. Jack Currie is an Aggie, but before he ever entered Texas A&M, there was a war to fight in World War II's European theater, and that's where he and his B-17 crew flew some 50 combat missions in 1944 and 1945. It was a time in our history that included D-Day, the Battle of the Bulge, and eventually victory in Europe. He has some interesting stories to tell, but none more compelling than his mission May 12, 1944, when his flying fortress was shot up so badly it really had no business staying aloft. But it did, and thus Jack Currie was able to tell that story and many more. Jack Jack Currie was born in 1921, and we lost Jack Currie September the 28th, 2019. Here's my visit with Jack Currie in his home.